West Virginia might actually have an advantage in their next game against Oklahoma State because why? Because they won't even have the worst defense in the game. That's right. West Virginia's got a good shot to beat the Cowboys, and I'm going to tell you why. Up next on Locked On West Virginia.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul, your host, as always. Welcome into Locked On West Virginia. Thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen every day. This is part of the Locked On podcast, and you know we talk about your team every day. This episode is also sponsored by FanDuel. Today, get a $5 bet, go to FanDuel, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. It's guaranteed. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, so if you would have asked me yesterday who had the better defense between Oklahoma State and West Virginia, I would have assumed West Virginia had a worse defense. And I couldn't have been more wrong. Wet Blanket shared something on X earlier from ESPN, and I just want to have a look-see at exactly what he's talking about because I was a little bit shocked. I really was. I just didn't know it was this bad for them, and it's going to make me rethink everything on this game, and tomorrow will have a big factor on that as well. So let's head over to ESPN and have a look-see at exactly what's being talked about. Wet Blanket. This is an Oklahoma State person. Oklahoma State is dead last in conference in rushing and pass defense. And as you can see, not that we're a lot better, but we're just above Texas Tech and Oklahoma State here in this list, right here at the bottom. Oklahoma State in 4 games has allowed 82 of 149, 55% completion rate, 1,123 yards, which is better than the 1,026 that West Virginia's allowed. 7.5 yards on average. West Virginia's is at 9.2. 280 yards a game. West Virginia's at 256. That's pretty crazy. That's passing stats. And then rushing totals. West Virginia is just above Oklahoma State, Arizona, TCU, Texas, and Texas Tech in that category as well. Things are just flipped upside down this year, man, but Oklahoma State has in 4 games 159 of 721 for 721 yards, 4.5 yards average, which is below WVU's 4.0 for 180 yards a game, 5 touchdowns, 3 fumbles. So I get it. We're going to be on the road. Totally get it. But things aren't as bleak as I thought they were. And then when you adjust this for the competition that Oklahoma State's played against, I think it even gets a little bit better for West Virginia here when you look at who Oklahoma State has played. So, all right. So that was last year. Okay, starting with San Diego State, they allowed in this game on defense Mark Gronowski to go 20 of 37, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. The back had 9 carries for 73 yards. They had 1 wide receiver go for 150 yards against them in this game. Is Griffin Wild better than Hudson Clement, Traylon Ray? I don't know. But, I mean, it's a San Diego State who is an incredibly good FCS team. I'll give you that. But forgive me if I'm not going to sit here and think for a second that we have receivers comparable at least to what they would have. And then Arkansas lit them up for 31 here. And you look at this totals, Taylor Green's a good player. 26 of 45, 416 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Jaquinton Jackson had 150 yards on the ground. And Oklahoma State still found a way to win, even though Ollie Gordon only had 50 yards on the ground, just completely backwards and making no sense. You move on to Tulsa, who has had a pretty good offense at times this year. And it looks like they took care of business in that game, and this could be considered what our Albany game would be, right? Francis, Watkins, they still had a receiver go for almost 100 on them in that game as well. So obviously their secondary has been a big issue. And then you look at the Utah game, and we know they got rushed on for a bunch in that game. Isaac Wilson, 17 and 29, 207, one touchdown, two picks. And Isaac Wilson, not exactly a great thrower of the football. Micah Bernard goes 25 carries, 182 yards in this game. Dorian Singer, 7 catches for 95 yards in that game. Ollie Gordon held to 42 yards in that one as well. So, I mean, it's just been really bad for them. Alan Bowman playing just horrible ball in that game as well. So don't tell me that West Virginia can't win this game. I'll tell you that now. I'm not going to screw that, you know. I really do believe that West Virginia is now, after looking at that, I like our offense and our defense just a little bit more in this game. Now, it's on the road, so you have to at least give Oklahoma State, let's say, -3 or -4, right? But I think it's not so, like, it's not games of past. It's like when they came to Morgantown in 2022 and just walked us all up and down the field with Spencer Sanders and that group that they had and that elite defensive line they had that year. Like, that guy's – who's Ohio safety coordinator now. Like, he's not even there anymore. So there's been a lot of changes. And, you know, Gundy has been able to coach those boys up over and over year after year. And they're still going to be tough on the road. I get that. But I'll tell you what, I feel a lot better about the West Virginia Oklahoma State game now. I really do. So it would be a great win for them. We'll see what Oklahoma State does tomorrow against a good Kansas State team that's also licking its wounds. It'll be interesting to see what happens in this one. But just breaking it down just from just that little bit, we got a shot, guys, and I don't think there's any reason that we shouldn't feel like we don't. So let's do this, man. Let's give these guys our support. We've got just a bit better defense. I know our defensive line's better, and I like our linebackers. And listen, Bowman is if he's going to play in that one, let's hope he plays well tomorrow. That way he gets to start against us. Because although he has hurt us before, we didn't have the pass rush we do now. And I think TJ and Tyron, healthy, coming off 2 weeks to prepare, are you kidding me, could really make an impact on the road in that game. If there's ever a game that's been set up for West Virginia and Neil Brown to win on the road, possibly one of Neil Brown's biggest victories, if not his biggest on the road, this is the time frame to do it in. You've got a team that's going to be beat up after playing Utah and Kansas State back-to-back, and then you're going to be heading there. But after they played Kansas State, they're going to have to be beat up, and you've had 2 weeks to prepare on top of that. I'm telling you guys, we got a shot to win this game. So let me talk you into it. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, we're going to look at this week's games around the Big 12. And then are fans harping on Darren DeVries already before he ever coaches a game? You know, the ridiculousness never ceases to amaze me with this fan base. That and more on this episode of Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by Robinhood Confidential. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and receive an unlimited 1% deposit bonuses. And you can be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privilege of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhoodgold.com/gold. Visit robinhoodgold.com. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, guys. So this is a big week in the Big 12, and I'm just going to go over a couple of the games and just let me share a screen here, and we'll just look at them on Google, and I'll give you my thoughts on each game. So let's start off with BYU and Baylor. We're going to read it from right here. And it says, they're saying pick the money line plus 142 at Baylor. Defensive battles in stone here as both teams have major advantages on that end of the field against their respective opposing offenses. Baylor's run defense is ranked 11th nationally in our rush success against metric, while BYU's pass defense is ranked 12th in pass success against. It'll be a battle of strengths. Can BYU's pass defense shut down a Baylor passing attack that's dealt with injury issues? Or can Baylor's run defense stop a BYU team averaging 136 a game? As mentioned, injuries loom large. Baylor's preferred starting quarterback, DeQuan Finn, missed the loss to Colorado with a rib injury. His status is still up in the air, and backup Sawyer Robinson was just okay in his absence. Robinson pitched with 148 yards passing and needed to lean on his legs to find more success. The BYU defense should be able to contain Robertson, though, in the air. On the flip side, BYU is coming off an impressive game in which it dominated Kansas State en route to a 29-point home win. BYU's run game has been balanced over the course of the year, with 5 players on the team getting anywhere from 16 to 28 carries. Against Kansas State, though, the new face version in the backfield, Simone Imua, a freshman running back that only had 6 carries on the year heading into last week's wins, led the team with 15 carries for 76 yards and a touchdown. His development will be critical into BYU's chances in the Big 12, but with a multitude of options at Bowie's emergence, it's more likely that BYU finds cracks in Baylor's rush defense and Robinson going through the air. Take BYU money line here. And I am in agreement, but also I read earlier that Moa is going to be injured in this game, or at least he's been seen in a walking boot for Baylor. So I don't expect him to play. But yeah, I think Baylor's been a surprise team, even though they should be 3-1 like us, right? They're 2-2, but they should be 3-1. And they should have beat Colorado. They let a Hail Mary get by them, and we understand what that's like. So it happened, but now they have to move on. And we're the starting quarterback playing for Baylor. I may be a little bit more tempted to pick him in this one, but I'm going to go with BYU to win this game. They've got a lot of momentum, a great defense, and I love Ratzlaff at quarterback, by the way. I've said it since they played. He started his first game against us last year, if you guys remember, and Gary Bohannon is returning to Baylor as well. I just thought about that. That'll be interesting. I wonder what he can tell them about the Baylor defense. So too many advantages for BYU in this one. Game number 2 is going to be a fun one. Colorado versus UCF. That's going to be a fun game. The UCF is 3-0. I think they walk out of this thing 4-0. I really do. I think they're going to dominate with the capital D Colorado in this game. Colorado is about to get smacked. That's my personal opinion. I think they win. Colorado is going to be able to score in this game, I do believe. But UCF is going to control the clock, time of possession, and all that, in my opinion, with an elite running game. If Colorado wins this football game, I'll start to believe in them a little bit more as a team that's got a shot in the league. But their defensive line is bad, and they're not good on defense, and I think the ball can be moved on them. So while Shador and Travis are as elite as it gets, them alone can't carry them for the season. And I like UCF in this one by a lot, by 2 scores. Too much Jefferson, too much Harvey. Iowa State versus Houston. And this is going to be basically an off week for Iowa State as those boys are going to continue to just get better and better and scarier as the year goes on. They're solid on defense. They've got 2 NFL wide receivers and a really good Rocco Beck throwing them the football. Don't see any reason why the Houston Cougars can do anything in this one. I don't see any reason why, although we went to Houston last year and got a taste of medicine against them, but this is not that same Houston team. They got the same quarterback, but they're just not playing well this year. So I like Iowa State to win this one by 12, 13 points. Cincinnati and Texas Tech is an interesting game as well. I'll take Cincinnati in this one. Too much Kiner. I think the running game is going to be too much for Texas Tech to handle, although they have looked better as of late, especially after an early loss. But I'll still take Cincinnati. I think they're pretty mad as well. They feel like they should be undefeated after also giving a big lead to Pitt. So I think they're and there's a lot of teams. I said it before the year, guys, what I tell you. You guys have heard me say this on the show multiple times. What the schedule looks like before the year, everybody said all these teams are going to be good. Just like last year, it's being flipped on its head again. And the teams that we thought were going to be good aren't as good as they thought we were. And so this stretch we're about to hit, like we thought for all offseason was going to be horrible, well, somebody's going to be coming off 2 losses when we play them. And what's it going to be, Oklahoma State or Kansas State, right? Similarly, we didn't think that Cincinnati should be 4-0, right? Like, it's just BYU. Like, it's never what we think it's going to be. So it's crazy. But I like Cincinnati in this one. TCU and Kansas is an interesting game. 2 teams licking their wounds, to say the least. Kansas just hasn't been able to get it right. This is going to be a big game for them. They're at home. I wonder how many fans are going to show up for this one. It's a team, this is already a basketball school as it is. They have a great fan base that'll show up when they're winning. Let's see what the fortitude of that fan base looks like when TCU comes to town. I like the quarterback at TCU. I think he's great, but I think I like Kansas to somehow figure it out at home. Their defense is still fairly tough. In some instances, I think they're going to be able to hold TCU here. I'll take Kansas to win by 3. And the game of the week in my book in this conference, Oklahoma State and Kansas State. This is going to be an interesting game. And when games are like this, you got 2 teams coming off tough losses. Oklahoma State looked way better in the loss than Kansas State did. But Kansas State has been so good the last 10 years. They've got such a great coaching staff. They're going to fix whatever it is that's wrong. And Oklahoma State just doesn't have the defense to force Kansas State to do what BYU did last week. So I think Kansas State's going to be able to run the ball very efficiently in this game. They're going to be able to control the clock. On the flip side, Oklahoma State just hasn't been able to get Ollie Gordon going. Pray to God we're not the team that he figures it out against. But, yeah, I would probably like to see – I would probably prefer to see an Oklahoma State win this game just because I want them to be 4-1 when we play them, just in case we win. So it looks the best possibly for us. But, Kansas State in a couple of weeks is just about as good, I guess. But I actually like Kansas State to win this game. I think, if Oklahoma State can force Avery Johnson into passing situations, that's different. But I don't think they're going to be able to. As I showed you earlier, they've got the worst defense in the league, which is shocking still. Even now, it's shocking to see Oklahoma State on that list. But maybe they can fix it. They've always been able to in the past, so is Kansas State. Give me the Wildcats in this one, as I think Kansas State pulls away by 10 or more. It's going to be an interesting week in the Big 12, guys, and we're going to find out a lot about future teams. We've got Iowa State, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State all playing this week, UCF, Cincinnati. Teams that we're going to see, Baylor, and so it's going to be fun to see how these teams look. Hopefully as many teams as we play continue to win. We want them to be as good as they can be when we play them, so that if we beat them, it looks as good as it can. That's how I look at it as a fan, because their teams are going to be just as difficult no matter the record anyway, so it's always going to be that way for us. So looking forward to it, guys. Let's see how my picks hold up. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, fans are harping on Darren DeVries. What's really going on here? We'll talk about it up next. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, which is guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. As of right now, the money keeps moving in back on BYU a little bit. That line's moved back up. It was 3.5 yesterday. Somehow Baylor. Now it's moved back towards BYU, which was expected. Interesting matchup there. We'll see what happens in that one, guys. But, yes, go to FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book. So, obviously, Darren DeVries hasn't been able to coach a game yet. and he's just put this team together. And I've heard a lot of great things about stuff he's done here lately with the team. You know, they decided to go bowling impromptu one day, just different stuff like that. And on X, obviously, there's a lot of support for Coach, but man, there are people like this guy right here, Cab. He's in over his head. Sounds as bad as Brown when he speaks, and you'll see that basketball is dead just like football. WVU might as well play in intramural leagues at this point. The current state of athletics under this AD is a dumpster fire. And then he goes on to say, so why are you giving him credit for things he has nothing to do with? And with that 9-4 record is deceptive. WVU athletics is entirely at the bottom feeder. So, to me, it sounds like somebody who it could be a Pitt fan for all I know, to be honest. And that's not the only comment. That's the one I wanted to talk about, though. Like, come on, I get it. Neil Brown has brought down in some people's minds the ceiling for West Virginia football, and so because Darren DeVries is a similar kind of guy as far as he's a kind of a country guy, he's very nice, a family guy. So, and he brings that kind of atmosphere. It doesn't mean that he's anything like Neil Brown on the floor. And I know Coach DeVries' brother pretty well and talk to him quite often. And he is one of the most competitive guys that anybody knows. Hates to lose. Guys, when he got there in the beginning, he spent literally every single day like when this first started, when the hire first happened, Darren DeVries was by himself in this. It was only him able to build the team because they hadn't hired any coaches yet. And he was putting in 17, 18-hour days. He was doing things the hard way. He didn't see his family for like 6 months or however long it was. So he has been really dedicated to this. Could only do what they could with the financial help that they had. And I hope he smears people's faces all in any kind of criticism they throw his way because it's year one, number one. He's going to get a pass in year one unless they win 0 games or something crazy and it's just a dumpster fire. He's going to get a pass. And number two, I think they've got a borderline tournament team as it is. I really do. They're going to play small ball and they're going to be good. Trust me when I tell you, I really feel that way. And with the way I've been hearing him talk, gives me a lot of confidence. They've got a ton of offensive firepower. They've got a couple of defensive stoppers, singular defensive stoppers. If they can play good team defense, this is going to be a good basketball team because I really don't have much doubt. But guys, this is going to be the best offensive basketball team we've seen in Morgantown in a decade plus. This is not going to resemble anything that Bob Huggins had there on the offense. I can promise you that. So before he's even played a game, we can see the Facebook crowd has come over to be negative. And, of course, they have. So, if you see anybody trashing Darren DeVries before he's coached his first game, tell him to get off of it because I think we've got a great coach in Darren DeVries and let him coach before anything else like that. So that's just my feelings on the subject. All right, guys, I appreciate you for joining me this afternoon for Locked On West Virginia. Thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen today. You guys have been everydayers for me for a while now. If you want a second listen, though, find Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin covers NIL deals. There's never-ending conference realignment rumors going on over there. And he can get you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. All you have to do is find Locked On College Football wherever on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you guys for joining me this afternoon. We'll talk Monday. This episode's over, and I'm out.